Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first podcast episode of Slashcast. And I'm going to kick off the series, a new series, of course, since it's the first episode of first podcast I'm ever doing, Real Talk with Gabe. The reason why I decided to start this one is because Gabe and I, we're really good friends. We're the best of friends.
The best of friends.
And we're brothers from another mother.
Considering being married.
We're colored. And so...
We'll get into that in a little
Welcome,
later.
Gabe. So how's it going, Gabe?
It's going good, man.
We just had to laugh during that intro. That's awesome.
I'm going to try to modulate or to lower and keep my laugh to a reasonable volume.
Decibels? Yes, please do that.
I will try. I will do my best. I make no guarantees.
So many of y'all probably won't know Gabe, and the people that I'll share it with probably do know Gabe. And I don't know whoever else is going to listen to this that doesn't know Gabe, but Gabe has a very, very loud laugh. I mean, you can sit in a restaurant and crack up a good joke, or more than likely, he's going to crack up a good joke, and he's going to laugh so loud, you're just going to is everybody going to be okay? Like, you start being wary of everybody else and like how they're going to take upon it, not understanding how this guy is. And so that's why he mentioned he's going to keep his laugh at a reasonable decibel.
And I think it's just a survival mechanism that I developed over the years, because my jokes really aren't always that funny. It's usually the laugh that gets people really cracking up. That's the thing.
Right.
The laugh is funny, and that's how I win people over. I mean, really, if you hear my jokes and without any laughter, you probably wouldn't laugh. It's just one side.
Right. So essentially what you're saying is the jokes are funny to you.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
laughing at your own joke.
I always tell people my jokes are intended. I'm the audience. I'm my own audience. And if anybody else laughs and gets it or goes along with it, then, that's a plus. But, I like to laugh at myself.
That's great. That's always a great thing, right? Like, I laugh at myself all the time.
Oh, yeah. I laugh at you, too. All the time.
Appreciate that.
So we're going to have to figure this out.
So how are we going to do this? I had this conversation with him probably like a week or two ago on something that we've done recently without really knowing. Is like we'll share videos, shorts, TikToks on various different topics, and then we'll kind of just delve into it and just talk about it. Sometimes for a short period of time, sometimes for hours on end. And it definitely varies. Like, we have a wide range of topics. We can just talk about something funny, of course. And then we'll talk about politics every now and then. And we definitely have different viewpoints when it comes to politics, but it's very respectful at the same time, which I always respect that when it's just a civil conversation and understanding each other's viewpoints. And then we'll talk about we're both single, so we talk about how that world is and how we're taking approaches into that. And in that case too, we take different approaches and we have different viewpoints when it comes to it too. And
one thing we do always see is the disparities between both sexes, and we're also, what I admire about our conversations all the time is that we're not just bashing on women or anything like how you see on a lot of podcasts. Sometimes, we do get a little contentious or critical about the opposite sex, but not without keeping in mind the deficiencies in the male perspective as well, and the behaviors that have developed among men as either a consequence of the injuries and hurts that we've inflicted on the female group, and that or the females have inflicted on the male group, and how everything's kind of deteriorated in the way we interact with each other.
Yes,
and
that is very true.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. It has, and I would have to agree with you on that. I think it has over time, and we have essentially evolved into a society where we kind of just bash on each other's genders, and you're like, oh, you're a woman, yeah, you're going to be like this or this and this, and we kind of categorize it and go off of it. And that's where I have changed that mindset, because I was there at that one point too. And I've changed that mindset over the last couple years to where, you know what, it's not that certain women are like this or certain men are like this. It's not that we should be sitting here bashing each other. It's actually, we're all like this on both sides. It's not one or the other. It's both sides. And that's how I think we should all approach it. And we should just do a better job at it.
Yeah. We need to hold each other and ourselves, most importantly, ourselves accountable for the things that we do and how we engage. If we've talked about this a lot too, as far as we're really only in control of the way we act. We're in control of ourselves, basically. If we're really truly autonomous individuals and all that, well, we have to work on our self-awareness. So then we know how to approach people and how to be authentically ourselves and also show up for people. That's one of our phrases that we always use. Also, how we show up. It's something that's very important to us. I want to show up this way. This is my intention. Yeah. How do I show up that most honestly like that? And even though when we're doing our criticisms of situation on either specific people or as a whole of a group, whether it's the opposite sex or a political group or a religious group, sometimes we get on that subject too. But it's like, how are we showing up to that, and criticizing that, and how they're showing up, and why is it that they're showing up that way, and how is it that we can show up and communicate more effectively with these individuals as well whenever we have these things. And there's also nothing wrong with being verbose or being passionate about what you're saying. And sometimes I think that comes off as hostile when we're being passionate about our stance and our point of view and how we're feeling. Sometimes when we get into hot conversations or discussions, we'll get loud, or we'll start talking over each other. But it's not because we're being disrespectful of each other or we're mad. We're just passionate about something like that. And some people tend to misinterpret that and get defensive about it and say that, you're being an a-hole about this, or you're being aggressive. It's not being aggressive. You have convictions. And I know this has happened to you a lot too. People misunderstand your passion and you're wanting to express this idea and the way you're showing up and why you're showing up that way, and the idea you're trying to push out there, and you're trying to explain yourself and be vulnerable, and you're getting worked up about it because you're passionate about how you feel and you want to make sure that they understand. Right. And I think oftentimes people misunderstand that for being aggressive or something like that.
Definitely. Yeah, I like how you brought up, like, it really does start with us. And I think that's where a lot of us miss that point, is that it really does start with us. It starts with us on just showing up, right? It starts with us on how we're seeing things. It also starts with us on how we're going to resolve things too, right? So we have all these things that it really just starts with us. And a lot of times we do put the blame, and it's easy to put the blame on the others, right? It's really easy, totally understandable. But what we're missing now is the other side, right? We're completely going to shut off on what the bigger picture is, and we're just going to close the entire door and just like sweep everything under the rug and just see only your way. And yes, and being able to express it in that way is important, with that intent, and at times, which is totally understandable, to be passionate about it and have it, but it has to definitely be expressed into some sort of manner. And so, but yeah. I don't know if I covered everything.
So I guess one thing that we're also trying to figure out is the kind of format that we're going to engage in this, because I know that being the maiden voyage of the podcast, we were talking about it before off camera and all that, as far as, well, we're going to come up with 3 subjects to talk about this. I'm like, well, 3 might be a lot, because sometimes we'll spend hours talking about one specific topic, and then other times we think that, oh, dude, like, I was just dealing with this situation today, and it turns into a conversation that lasts maybe a minute, and we just kind of get on the same page, and we're like, oh, that makes sense, and it resolves really quick and really easy. And like, it's like, so we're gonna do this podcast. If we're gonna be like going through these categories so quickly, like, how are we gonna actually do this?
That's where I say with 3, it's like for worst case scenario 3, because sometimes we really do go through the topic pretty quickly, and then other times we'll stay on that one topic for a good hour and a half.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's definitely the extent of our conversation.
Can you hear Calvin in the background there?
No.
Okay, good. Because I can hear him on my headphones.
So, what shall we talk about? Let's see. So something that I did recently, as I'm trying to delve into the social media world, and I've for years kind of stayed out of it and not really put my 2 cents into anything, and didn't want to, how do I say it, really ruffle my feathers. But when I delved deep in the reason why I was not expressing certain matters is because the vulnerability, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand that vulnerability is essentially 2 ways. Is whenever you're opening up a conversation, you're actually being pretty vulnerable. And when you're trying to inquire in a conversation, that's also being vulnerable. When you're expressing yourself, of course, everyone knows, essentially, and I'm taking that as a big assumption, that everyone knows that when you're expressing yourself, you're essentially vulnerable. You're open to any sort of criticism, and you're not going to be ready for it at all. And so,
that's what I think a lot of
gets lost is putting your viewpoint out there.
Right.
Now you're vulnerable, right? And I think that's where my holdup was. And so I decided to put myself out there finally, because for a long time there, I wasn't listening to Joe Rogan's podcast. I didn't have any particular reason why. I just was more back into my music vibes, like I go through waves. I listen to a bunch of music, and then sometimes I want to listen to something funny, so I'll listen to a funny podcast, and other times I'll listen to some serious stuff. And so I've kind of gone down the road back onto listening to some serious stuff, and I always liked how Joe Rogan presented his viewpoints, and even the guests that he brought on, they're just interesting, and just the viewpoints that they had. And so the one I watched was about Tulsi Gabbard, however you say her last name. I think you said it a lot better than I.
Tulsi Gabbard? Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so she is denouncing from the Democratic Party. And is that right? Denouncing, right? Is that the right word? Or removing herself from the Democratic Party?
Yeah.
And
more like renouncing.
Yeah, renounce. And so she's essentially becoming independent. And as I looked on Twitter and listened to her announcement, I was scrolling through all the replies. And one of them kind of got to me. And it was essentially, I was just like, I don't see. And I know when you're in the Democratic Party, you're going to say certain things to really, for the masses along the Democratic side, right? And one of the viewpoints on the Democrat side is like essentially no guns. At least that's the way I'm taking it, right? And she expressed that intent, and she didn't really express like no guns, but she expressed
responsible gun laws, reasonable, logical, common sense gun laws is what I think she said.
Yes, she was kind of wanting to tighten it up a little bit, make it a little bit more cleaner, make it kind of just so people that are unreasonable don't have a hand of it. Right. So someone had posted a few pictures and a screenshot of what she had said, and a picture of her holding a military style gun at a tactical games, and it says it in the screenshot of that picture that she's at tactical games. And so I'm not thinking there's nothing wrong with it, and And my standpoint on guns is, I would say it's pretty muddy. Like I am a type of person that you do what you do, and more power to you. If you want to have guns.
It was called tactical games, right?
Right. It was called tactical games.
I've never heard of this before, but
have
I mean,
a strong viewpoint.
Yeah.
What was that?
No, I was just saying, so for people that don't know what tactical games are, because I don't either. But apparently, it's like a place where you can have events there. It's a location, a venue of sorts. That's, I guess, out in the open. It's kind of like a shooting range or like obstacle course kind of thing too.
Right. So it's like essentially
they have a
used
Texas Shooting Academy, right? Stronghold, etc. Like that. So you're out there renting equipment or whatever to do some of these sort of use some of these weapons and train or do something like that. And sometimes it's just for fun. I guess promoting team unity or things like that too, or whatever.
Right. So the guy posted those, and he did in quotation marks along with it values, and I'm just like, please clarify. I don't see an issue with firing a gun like that and then having the expression of or wanting sensible gun rights, right? I don't see an issue in that. And so it went on, and I didn't think it was going to create more comments or anything, but it did. And so I still have a tough time grasping, and I know Gabe here has a different viewpoint on this, but I have a tough time on grasping the entire thing, the entire gun control of it all. And he, as we're kind of talking before this, and that there is a mass of population that does not understand, right, that what AR is. And I think that's where everyone is getting driven to, at least on one side of where the division, let's put it that way, for talking purposes, where the division is, where the left side is more on, hey, no ARs are allowed. Right. And yeah, we can dig into that even more.
Yeah, but, because I think what we're talking about in the conversation, and what I've seen a lot of, like, I would consider myself more of a libertarian. I try to stay more middle ground, middle of the road kind of thing. And I know that's become really popular for a lot of conservatives or whatever to say now, since now saying you're conservative seems to be so taboo and like something that you get bashed for or whatever. But I do consider myself more of a libertarian. It's like, go out, respect each other, be free, do the things that you want to do with the respect of other people, etc. Whatever. I mean, I know I'm paraphrasing and just kind of like just throwing little blurbs up there, but I mean, what I like, shows like The View, which I just can't stand. Like I get so impatient sometimes, and it's something that I know I need to work on as far as being impatient with these people and everything. But the thing is, they have such a large platform and large audience, and when they talk about like ARs, which is one of the biggest things that everybody's always talking about when they talk about gun control, which is fine. Like when I got my handgun, we were talking about that earlier also. When I got my handgun, I went to, like, I think it was a Bass Pro Shop or one of those, and I had to go through a background check. I mean, it took less time for me, I guess because of my name and all that. Sometimes that's what determines how long a background check goes and everything. But it was just a 9mm handgun, and for personal defense, concealed carry, etc. I went through a background check. I did that. And that it came back, and I'm like good. Within like 15-30 minutes, I was able to walk out with my gun and everything. That's fine. But people think that, like, when they hear an AR, oh well, it looks intimidating. It's a rifle. It's got the little thing, and you can add things to it and accessories, and it looks like a bit like intimidating. But an AR does not stand for assault rifle. And every time I've seen it on a bunch of newscasts and places like The View, they think that an AR is an automatic rifle. It's not an automatic rifle. It stands for Armalite rifle. It's not assault rifle 15. It's an Armalite rifle. It's it's a semi-automatic weapon. So, simplest terms, I guess you could say, is that you have to pull the trigger every time you want to for it to fire a round. Same way as a pistol, like the 9mm that I have for concealed carry, that typically most people don't have a lot of issue with. It shoots at the same, more or less the same rate. So it's not like it's not like you hold down the trigger and it starts shooting rapid fire. Brrr, it's not one of those things that you see like on the movies. It's like, nah, it's not doing that. It's not say hello to my little friend or anything like that. You know, it's a weapon, and a lot of times it's used for, like, I think hunting or just sport or whatever.
Right.
But these people like think that it looks intimidating, so it's going to be a weapon that you should be afraid of and everything like that. Now, has it been used in shootings? Yes. But really, more often than not, mass shootings, which I would consider more like, there are far more mass shootings as far as drive-by shootings or things like that have been used with, have been carried out with handguns or regular weapons like that, not using AR. It's like, the argument is kind of like, I mean, you want to start there because it looks intimidating. It's probably the easiest target to try to get a ban on that. If you really actually want to respect the Second Amendment rights and the Second Amendment law, whatever, on the Bill of Rights, then you want to, I mean, that's something that you need to respect as well. It's not something that you're going to take to battle with you. I'm sorry, you're going to say something?
No, I was just kind of in a way agreeing with you that, that's the counter when it comes to people arguing the fact that those ARs are not, I wouldn't say essentially nothing, but they're not, when the masses are associating ARs, they associate it with the shootings, the mass shootings, right? But then their counters when it comes to that is, well, a majority of those mass shootings were also carried out with handguns, right? And so that's where it gets all muddled and everything. And then whenever I talk to people on either side, like I get the passionate side on protecting people. I get it. I'm all for it. And that's why I push for having stricter gun laws. And at the same time, I don't think it's plausible to completely ban them. And I think it's out of consideration with the people that are essentially using it for their welfare and for their protection, right? And so I just don't like the argument when people make it to where it's their Second Amendment right? The right to bear arms. And I think this is something that probably is going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. We have a change of times, right? We are not living in the 1800s, 1700s, or whenever that the Constitution was made. I'm sorry that I hurt anyone's feelings that I don't know on the top of my head when the Constitution was written. Okay, I'm not a history buff. But
you know what we do have here is we have Google. That's what I've kind of been doing.
Look up and be like, well, it was. No, I'm not going to do that right now. All right, everybody gets the point. The Constitution was written ages ago, and times have essentially changed. Do you not think that we can now avoid whatever is written in that Constitution?
Well,
not really. I want to say completely avoid. That's probably a poor choice of word. I'm saying like reconsider and apply it to the times now. I think things
I agree
have
with
to
you.
change in that direction.
I do agree with you. To a certain extent, to a certain point. Because I mean, let's take something that's happening now currently. Okay, Ukraine, with the invasion of Russia into Ukraine and all that. Now, I don't think necessarily that an Armalite rifle, an AR-15, is really a weapon you want to take into a gunfight against a military like Russia or anything. But it is a weapon that you can use to protect yourself. Now, let's say that if these people had the same rights to bear arms, the right to bear arms to protect yourself, your family, your property, and your all that, you have an invading force like Russia coming in. And if that population was armed and had that right and exercised that right and were as passionate about the right as far as much as a lot of the people in the United States are, in different pockets of the United States are, if they were armed, for instance, like we live in Texas, there's a lot of people in Texas that are armed and
Right.
some of them are heavily armed, some of them are not. We have a friend of ours from our social group that that has a bunch of weapons. Like I hung out with them. Our redheaded friend, and our young redheaded friend. Not I don't know about mentioning names or anything like that. I'm just going to be,
Let's not
respectful of
call
that.
anyone out here.
Yeah, exactly. But I was hanging out at his place, and he has all sorts of weapons and everything. I'm like, if something were to go down, if she were to go down like it was over there in Ukraine, we got invaded by somebody or like that, or some shit like that was going down. That's one of the first places I would want to go, is with him, because he's got stuff to protect yourself. And the thing is, the government you can do that same thing for government, huh?
Do you not think that's kind of an extreme level thinking?
It is. But the thing is, like, extreme situations happen.
I say that because whenever it comes to one side saying the reasons why they do not want to have firearms, the other side likes to go to that extreme, right? And the one side, I'm going to say the left side goes to the extreme, and then the right side's like, well, no, come on, we have to have this. But it's okay for the right side to go to that extreme. Like, I understand. To where I draw the line is for pleasure, and we're going to use it for protection. Is it going to be used for the extreme of an invasion? Very unlikely, right?
Very unlikely. But the only point I was trying to make is that it does happen. And you would think that well, this Constitution and that Bill of Rights was written years ago, centuries ago, or whatever, and it's not something that can be applied to nowadays. But I'm like, obviously, it hasn't happened in the United States since the Civil War, really. But can it happen? Yes. Now, is it going to be as effective fighting against a government like the United States, where we have weapons so much? We're very armed. We're very well armed. Our military is very well armed. We have fighter jets and tanks and all that.
We can't take on our military. All right.
However,
so back in the day, the reasons why it was right to bear arms was to stick up against the British Army, because it needed to happen at that time, right?
But even still, like, take a look at history with the Vietnam War. A lot of like the Viet Cong weren't as well equipped. I mean, yes, they were equipped. Yes, were they being supplied by the Russians, etc., and whatever you want to say? Yes, but were they really as well organized or as well armed as the United States Army? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Yes, and then also the Iraqis during the Iraqi War, the insurgents, or whatever you want to call the people that were there, the Taliban and all that.
Worth going to a different country. So are you saying, like, if they were armed, they would have an advantage, or are you saying, like,
the thing is not necessarily that they were had an advantage, but chance? You see that our success wasn't as massive as it could have been, and that's not really accurate.
Using it in a military style is that's understandable, right? I think we can all agree on using it when it comes to that case. It is understandable to use it, even though we want to avoid it at all costs. I don't think we want to go into any argument and be like, well, you know what, I'm going to start a war with you. I don't think any country really wants to do that outside of Russia, of course. But sorry, that might get taken down just for that. But
right, I know, right? Like, I mean, that's something that we really need to also know as far as what like standards are and all that. But I mean, my point's more along the lines that everybody thinks that, it can't happen. It can't happen here. It can't happen here, and that law is outdated, and we should get rid of it. I'm like, no, we shouldn't necessarily just dismiss it. Now, I think that I'm very much in line with you, and I totally agree with you as far as gun control laws and everything, because there are a lot of people that, for some reason, and this is also my problem with the whole thing too, because I'm very much agreeing with the fact that there should be background checks, and the loopholes that with the gun shows where people don't have to necessarily. I think they don't. I don't think or it's very lax how you don't have to do background checks or something like that at the gun shows.
That was mentioned in what she had.
I kind of remember a little bit about it.
Wait a minute.
Just don't know too much. Yeah, but there is a way to get around some of that stuff going
I
to
ever
a gun
tell you
show
that I
to
went
buy
to a gun
weapons.
show before?
I haven't been to a gun show.
I have, believe it or not.
But like, I
And
mean, yeah,
I was, I didn't know how to feel. I walk in and I'm just like, I felt so out of place because I've shot a gun before that, right?
yeah.
So I did not feel great when after I shot it, and I've understood why I wouldn't probably ever own a gun, even though people are telling me you should. And maybe over the years, that viewpoint might change, and I might end up owning one, right? But whenever I got in there, this was the time when Trump was president, right? And so I get in there, and you see all these Trump hats. So my association right away is I'm gonna meet a lot of racist people.
Right.
And I'm a brown guy, right? Obviously, you can tell I am of color.
Yeah.
And so I go in and I just see a bunch of white people and I'm just like, whoa, shit. What did I get myself into? But the only reason why I went is to really experience something that was out of my own element, right?
See, but not everybody's self-aware like that with like as you are, because I've got into conversations and debates about people with about gun laws, and I haven't been to a gun show, and I'm like standing up for all this stuff, but or whatever. But there's not a lot of people. There's a lot of people that there's not a lot of people that are self-aware enough or willing enough to step out of their comfort zone to go see what the deal is with an open mind and not being apprehensive. Because some people will wind up like, oh, fine, I'll go. But they go with this closed mindedness.
Right.
And they're looking, it's almost like you're looking for something to confirm that all these people are racist and a-holes and all this crap.
Right.
But so continue about your experience. I'm kind of curious.
And then what I got from it, it's great that you bring up that point, because what I got from it was the majority of the people were buying those guns for fun, for show, just to have it for essentially it was a hobby, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like collecting cars. They were just collecting guns. And I kind of understood that, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, I wonder how the background check was done on that. Now that opens up another. I'm just like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How was the background check done? And the buddy that I went with, he did have the background check done on him. And so, but then now when they're saying, yeah, tighten up on the gun show background checks, and I'm just like, wait a minute. So was it lax? Is it lax to where like anybody, any mentally unstable person can go in there and just buy a gun and just... Now that's where it gets scary, and that's where
it gets sketchy. And I agree, because like not everybody should have. I totally agree that not everybody should have a gun. Not everybody should have a gun. I have somebody that I know who always was talking about guns and like advocating for all that kind of stuff. Like, oh yeah, buy a gun, get a gun, Gabe. Blah 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 blah. Always. And one of the biggest things, the reasons why I didn't want to buy a gun was because of that person. Because of how, just to me, it seemed really irresponsible the way he handled his weapon. He would always like show me, hey, look, check it out. And he shows me that he's like carrying. I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, carrying. But like every freaking time it gets annoying, and it gets like, oh, dude, it started rubbing me in a way that it made me feel like it was like a toy, like a big boy toy. And like, I don't trust people like that to necessarily. I mean, he seems to be very safe. He knows his gun safety, and he's cautious and all that. Whatever, but the fact that he's still, it just sounds like childish the way he goes about that, and that makes me feel
it's a little awkward, right?
It's a little awkward.
Yeah,
and other people that I know, like
when you take a person out, like one of your guy friends, and they see a bunch of girls, and they just make a whole scene out of it, right? And so it just becomes awkward, and you're just like, dude, it's no big deal. It's just a girl, you know? Like,
yeah. Are you calling me out?
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, and then there's other people that just, I mean, they have no business, or they really need to go and
I heard that.
They really need to. You heard that one?
Yeah, I heard that one.
I probably shouldn't have given my cats catnip.
Yeah.
Because right now, I don't know if that's what it is.
I don't know why you give them catnip at all. They don't need it.
I know, no kidding. They're all going nuts.
Yeah,
anyway,
2 crazy cats.
But yeah, I mean, and like, there's people that just have no business carrying weapons, or they really need to consistently go and get training in classes. And that's also one thing that I also did do. Is as soon as I got my weapon, is I went and I got my training, my classes to the shortly after I got my weapon, like maybe a year or so. They came out with a law where they said in Texas where you don't need to have a license for concealed carry.
Yeah.
But I went ahead, and even if it was after that fact.
So what does that mean? Like I know a lot of people were not, after that came out, were not essentially safe on that. And so for the audience, what does that mean? I don't even truly know what it means, and I didn't take the time to educate myself on it.
I think the state of Texas is now officially. I don't remember, because I know gun laws changed a lot, which is another thing I also signed up for. Texas Law Shield, I think is what it's called, and they update you on the gun laws, and they provide you with. Well, let's just start from the beginning, I guess, from at least my process, and then we'll branch out from there. Is I went and got my certification, my classes. So you go and get a gun safety class, and they make sure you know about all the laws and how to operate your weapon. Never point your gun at anybody when you're unloading, loading, showing, or doing anything. You always point away from people. It's never pointed at yourself or anything. Always treat a weapon like it's loaded. Regardless if the person said it's not loaded, they say, "Oh no, it's not loaded. I don't have anything." They take out the magazine or whatever, or the clip, or magazine, depending on the weapon. You always treat it like it's loaded. You open, you check, and make sure there's no. They teach you all that make sure that there's no round in the barrel, etc. And they teach you about the gun laws and what when you're allowed to use your weapon, etc. And also, they also train you, at least the class that I took, in how to de-escalate situations.
And this is for getting a license?
Yeah, because I think it's very useful. It gives perspective from a professional about how to treat your weapon or weapons in general. And they teach you how to de-escalate. They tell you need to de-escalate things before you even reach for your weapon. It's like, make sure that, somebody's being aggressive with you or whatever. You don't know if they're trying to mug you or they're being whatever. You don't know what kind of person's coming at you, right?
Right.
Which is why you have a weapon to protect yourself for self-defense. But you don't automatically go to your weapon right away. You try to de-escalate the situation, and sometimes it gets defused and whatever. Right. And sometimes pulling out your weapon or at least reaching for your weapon or showing that you have a weapon or something like that, or kind of like whatever, doesn't intimidate the person, doesn't defuse the situation, actually can escalate the situation. Somebody will get defensive, like, "Oh, you're going to pull your gun on me," or blah, blah, whatever, and get in your face,
right.
And it leads into something worse. So
right.
they typically say, "No, you need to defuse the situation. Now you only reach for your weapon if you really need to use it. If you're going to use it with the intention to protect yourself, that's the only time that you're going to pull your weapon, is when you really need to defend yourself. That's right. the last scenario, case scenario.
All taught when you're getting a license, right?
When I'm getting my license, and then they take you to the range, and they check your proficiency.
Now I actually see what these people were talking about. I would feel unsafe and uneasy too, because I would think having that type of training, because it's a weapon that it's almost like a car, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In a sense. It's a sense. And in a sense, in order to drive a car, you have to have a driver's license. You have to go through that proper training. And I think that should be the same case when you're having a gun. You should go through that proper training in order to handle the gun in a proper way. I think having a license to carry is important. And
if you're going to
that
carry
license,
if you're going to carry it, I think getting your license and getting those classes is essential if you're going to own a weapon. You don't need it if you're not going to carry it. If you're not going to carry your weapon, you don't need to get a license. In other words, you can buy a gun. Anybody can buy a gun, as long as you I would agree with the law that says you have to get a background check to own a weapon. But anybody can own a weapon, right? You just can't carry it if you don't have a license. Check. Yeah, you can't
Right.
carry it if you can't open carry or you can't conceal carry if unless you have a license is what it was originally. Before it was like you can buy a weapon, you have to keep it on your property. So you can keep it in your car. If you don't have a license, you can keep it in your car. You can't carry it anywhere else. You can keep it in your car or you can keep it at your house,
Right.
in your place of residence. So on your property, you can keep it without
If
a
you have a
license.
license.
No, without a license. You can
Without a
keep
license. Okay.
You can keep it in your house. You can keep it in your car, without a problem. They were licensing people to carry it with you, because then since you're carrying it around with places and with you and all that, and interacting with people while you're armed, you have to be trained. So that's important. I think that's fair, and I think that's right. Now, if you don't want to carry it, you want to keep it just to protect when you're at your house for like intruders, home intrusions, and stuff like that. Then you just keep it at your house, and you don't have to carry it with you anywhere, or keep it in your car, like for muggings when people are getting carjacked or things like that. Then you have it in your car. But then with the thing with the house, with the car thing is you definitely can't go out and party. You can't go out drinking and partying and have your gun in the car within reach. So the thing is, you put that in your trunk where you can't get to it. Because if you've been, yeah, you shouldn't be driving and being in your car drunk anyway. But and actually, even when you're carrying,
Or no matter what,
Mhm.
within reach. Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying?
yeah, and you can't carry your gun when you're drinking anyway either.
Right.
That's why like a lot of bars or bar and grills or whatever,
Yeah.
they'll have a percentage.
Right.
Like if they serve a
Without-
percentage of
without
amount of
going to a
alcohol.
bar, you're not allowed to carry at all. But this was
Exactly,
back in
yeah.
what I'm reading, 2016.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been like the law like that for quite a while. I
Still
think
that
even
way
before
now?
that. Huh?
Like without the license to carry, now you can just carry it wherever. Is that how it goes now?
Yeah, I think you can carry. I think you can carry now without a license, just not at bars. Like you can anywhere that you can. You can go to a liquor store. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I have to check that again. But I think you go into almost any store unless they have like an actual. They'll have like signs posted outside that you can't carry a gun, or they have stipulations out there.
And that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
You're gonna
and then
be
like
in
like
a
a, like
state
a, like
of
an
mind. At least you're doing
Applebee's.
something right here.
Yeah, and like at certain restaurants,
You're
you
in
can
a
carry.
different state of mind. You're not gonna flip your shit and just like start
Exactly.
shooting up the place.
Well, because inhibitions go out the window.
Oh, of course.
You know,
We all
And all
know
that.
that. I'm sure we've all faced that at some point in our lives.
you
where-
and me have a gun that we carry with ourselves all the time that can wreck our lives and somebody else's lives. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't want to be shooting those. Some people shoot blanks, but you could get yourself into some trouble when your inhibitions go down, and that's something
Yeah.
that's biologically attached to you, and much more. You should be more
Oh,
safe
now we're
with
talking
something like
about
that
different
too.
guns here, or what are we talking about? Dude, you just
Guns and
stop.
sex.
Oh, okay.
Guns and sex. Dicks, son. I was talking about dicks.
All right, topic change.
No, it's not. It's all on the same subject. As far as if you're going to protect yourself and be careful with that kind of thing. If you know that that's a danger, that when your
Right.
inhibitions are down, you can change your entire life. Same thing with like.
and I would definitely say
principle.
that's common sense, but
Yeah, it should be.
not. A lot of people
Yeah.
are not going to think like it's wrong to carry that. They're not going to be aware enough to be like, oh, it's actually bad if I carry this along with me as I'm
Yeah.
having a few drinks and whatnot.
Yeah, but then it's smart to go get your lessons and all that. And plus, one of the things that they offered there, they had somebody come talk to us. This I mentioned it before. This Texas Law Shield, I believe is what it's called, which I signed up for because, believe it or not, even if you use your weapon to protect yourself and it's a justified shooting, you can still go to jail. So the way they explained it, if I remember correctly, like for instance, I was mentioning to you this before. The reason why I got my gun was a couple of years ago. There was a shooting at a church down the street from where my parents live in Fort Worth. I think it was over there by Lake Worth, somewhere around there. and the guy walked in there and was shooting people, and he didn't really get too far and didn't really cause a whole lot of damage because a member of the church was armed, and he was carrying his weapon, and he was able to put that person down before he really caused a lot of damage. And the thing is, they'll take you to the Texas Supreme Court. I believe it's where they take you to the Supreme Court, and they lay out the situation and the circumstances of the shooting, and they'll say, yeah, you were justified in your shooting. You protected yourself. It was a good shooting. It was a clean shot shooting. You're justified. You're legally protected. You're fine. I mean, you're legally allowed, and it's within the law. You're fine by the Texas Supreme Court. However, if that shooter had a wife with children, and he was the primary provider, whatever, the main breadwinner, and you ended his life, even though he was killing people, you can be sued civilly in civil court or whatever by their family for putting them in a situation where they lost their main breadwinner, and now they're going to be put in poverty or situation like that. They can sue you for that, and you can go to prison or whatever after that. Even though the state of Texas say it was a good shooting, you can still be brought up on charges from that. So I signed up for Texas Law Shield or whatever it's called. So if I were to ever get into a situation like that, then the shooting was justified. It was a good shooting. I mean, clean shot, whatever they call it. It's justified. You're in the clear by Texas law or whatever. They provide you with legal help and lawyers and etc. So they will represent you to protect you from liability from that, because you're responsible for every round that leaves your gun and your weapon. And the thing they tell you is, like, if you have to use your weapon for an intruder or anything like that for whatever reason, you always call an ambulance for whoever was shot and for yourself. Because some people think that even though they didn't get shot, they didn't get injured or anything, you're still in a state of shock, and it also protects you because you're being reviewed, you're being looked over, and making sure that you're in full cognizance, et cetera, and that. So it's another level of protection. They tell you always do that, and always call your representation. So the thing is, there's a lot that goes into it. So you have to be responsible with your weapon. And so it's really important. You can't just can't have every Tom, Dick, and Jerry, I think is what that saying is. You can't just Harry, Tom, Dick, and Harry, armed with weapons. I mean, I see the benefits and the logic and the common sense for there to be gun laws, but you also
they have to be refined, right? You would agree that they have to be drastically refined to where it's. I
don't know if I would say drastically, but I definitely think they need to be ironed out,
do you
lined
not
out.
Think like if it's refined enough to where it's gonna at least decrease the percentage of the guns being given or sold to the wrong hands?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
I think that always makes sense.
If it's refined enough to where they cover a lot of the bases. Because that's essentially what we're trying to do. And it's in everything, right? We can't make everything 100% foolproof, right? It comes to driving cars. It comes to handguns. It comes to so many different things that we can't really police to the greatest extreme. We have to do it as best as we can, because essentially the government's responsibility is, yes, to protect us. And so that's where I think there should be no guns. That's where I start with my thought process, right? And then when it comes to essentially the second right, I don't view it as the right to bear arms, but essentially, like, you have the right to own stuff that you're going to want to do and own. That's how I'm viewing things. I'm not saying that's how I'm viewing the Second Amendment. I'm just saying in general terms, like, we have the right to do certain things, right? And so that's where it's like, okay, in all consideration, yes, you can bear these arms, right? You can have them, but we do not want them. This is where there has to be measures being taken to where it doesn't get into the wrong hands. And that's where it starts getting very muddy. It starts
Right.
getting. This is where the lines gets drawn, right? This is where it defines if you're left or right, or if you're moderate, or if you're libertarian, essentially, right? Is, oh, which side are you on? And then you say it, and then you're just essentially associated, and you're also canceled nowadays, right? Just by expressing just your viewpoint, and you can be completely ignorant about it, like I am a lot of times. Like, and when it comes to the gun rights, the gun control, anything regarding guns, I'm very ignorant, and like I would love to be educated more on it and just the benefits.
See, and that's what it boils down
of course,
to.
I know.
Education, dude.
Was that?
It always comes down to education, being
It
knowledgeable,
does.
more
It
more
does.
informed, and don't go informed by what the media tells you, because both
Yes.
sides. Like, I know I like to rag on the leftist media and everything, because they always like just say things. Every source of I guess the major media is biased to whatever side that they're on.
Right.
It's rare.
Whoever's
It's
feeding
rare
them,
when they actually
right?
give you just the facts.
Whoever is giving them the money, they're going to
Yeah.
cater to those beliefs.
Exactly.
Right?
So
And that's how
don't
politicians
necessarily just
are
go off
too.
of what
And I
they're
don't think the masses understand, hey, all these politicians are filling up their pockets, and we're sitting here working.
Yeah,
Now-
we're sitting
and
here
now-
arguing and fighting with each other and canceling
yes,
each
with
other.
each other.
and they're
We're
laughing while
doing
it's in
exactly what they're wanting us to do.
Absolutely. And the
Man,
thing is, like, I just pulled up
going
some
back to
stats
the
right now.
education, going to the education that you mentioned it up, this is something that I've probably been passionate about ever since I was like a little kid. When I was back 18-year-old, I had always believed education is a big point. It's a strong thing. It's something that's important, and something that is underrated for a long time. We as a people, and even the government, is overlooking this important aspect. We see it, and we see it as a problem, but we're doing nothing about it. And that, to me, that's probably the most frustrating thing, because we're losing a lot of things when it comes to education. There's a lot of critical thinking that we lose when we're not properly educated.
Exactly.
Because when we go through those extremes of becoming educated, we're losing critical thinking. And the reason why I say critical thinking, because nowadays, and I was in the system as a teacher, and nowadays everything's just pass the test.
Yeah, standardized.
We can't push the students whatsoever, or otherwise the parents get mad, or the kids fuss. And it's like, no, let's not do that. We need the numbers. We need the finances, right? We can't lose the numbers, right? Or we'll lose the grants, or whatever it is, the money or the fundings. So let's just, essentially, it's curving the numbers by allowing all the behavior and just catering to, in Texas in particular, because I don't know how other states do it, but in Texas they have a test that they give out I won't say throughout the year, once every year. Isn't it every year, right? Starting from a certain age, it's every year on that you have to pass a certain test. It used to be TAX. It used to be TOS back when I was a little kid. I don't know how many names it has gone through. Now it's like EOC, if I remember correctly. It could be a different name now. But anyways, that test is defining you to pass on to go on to the next grade, essentially. As long and at the same time you pass all your grades. I mean your classes, right?
Right.
This is where a lot of it gets lost. When we're just catering to the numbers, and we're catering to all the funding. There's no critical thinking. We're not putting the pressure on these kids.
No, our education system is for crap, really. I mean, I just pulled up a quick stat thingy. We're not in the top 10 rankings worldwide as far as educational systems. It's Denmark, Finland, Japan, Canada, Sweden, Germany, Israel, Netherlands, Singapore, South Korea.
Yeah,
we're not there.
Bad. We're way down there, and it's gone worse. Like, I remember looking years ago how bad it was, and then I looked recently. And I was like, oh wait, I remember years ago I was like, oh, we're only like top 10, I think, or top 15 or something like that, and now it's like in the 20s, right?
I think so.
What number are we on now?
Let me see. Population. I'm not sure. I'll try to find it here, but it's That's the
Okay.
thing is, I don't know how they organize this thing, but the top countries, the best education were the 10 that I just read, and that's countries with the best educational system in 2020. Global Citizens for Human Rights put that out. The lowest rankings. Well, we're not in the lowest, and we're not in the highest. So we're
Out of
somewhere.
how many countries is this though?
Yeah, that's the thing is I'm not sure. There's a lot of countries, but
Yeah, it has to be over 100, right?
yeah. I mean, and that's the
Right.
thing is, and that kind of this all ties back. You said that's what I really liked what you said about critical thinking. There's a lot of people that are smart, book smart. Is that whole thing about being book smart and street smart, whatever. There's some people that just don't that lack a critical thinking mechanism. They don't
I
really
think we're
have what's
able to
called
do
common
it. We're
sense.
just not wanting to for some odd reason.
Yeah,
I think we have the
we're
capability of critically think, but
right.
we're just not doing it.
Yeah, I mean,
And I think
that's
a big aspect of that
Mhm.
is just not pushing our own selves, right?
Yeah.
We're taking the easy road, or we'll just coast
there's
essentially,
that.
right?
There's absolutely that. There's a lot of it's you can't just hang it on one issue or one thing, and I think that's
Right.
what we hear. We hear a lot about that on the news and everything. Everybody's hanging it on one certain item, and I know right now the biggest thing right now that I know I don't agree with it because I think it's a waste of time. But you can't just hang the situation of our or the current place of our education system on just this one topic, but the whole CRT thing and the whole inclusivity of the transgender LGBTQ community, you can't just hang it on just that issue. I don't think that they should be focusing and making such a big deal about teaching that in schools. I think that we need to really think about what we're actually teaching our kids to think critically, think logically, make their own decisions. Don't be pushing agendas about these. Should it be at some point should it be talked about? Yes, I think it should be because they're going to
I
run
think
into
it's
it in
too
the real
early when we
world.
start talking
But
about it at that age.
yeah,
Maybe when they're a little
there's
bit
that.
older, maybe high school it can get introduced as
Yeah,
a
yeah, but I
what's it
mean,
called? Elective,
yeah.
but
That's
not
an
as a main
entirely
subject.
Yeah, that's an entirely another subject. But I mean, if we can't really focus on educating our kids, I mean, one of the critiques of that some of these conservatives people will make about that, which I think is a very logical for me. It makes sense. Their beef with that is that they're saying, you know, why are we teaching kids, or why are we spending so much time teaching some of our kids or our children, whatever, in some of these schools about these gender identities and all that? Why are we spending so much time talking about that when they can't even read? There's people in like the later years in elementary school, maybe sometimes even into middle school, that they can't read properly. I mean, some of these kids, they can read the words on the page, but they can't understand what's being expressed, the ideas, the context, the subtext of
Right.
these things. So you're wasting your time
I
teaching
couldn't
them
either
about this
at
stuff,
that
but you
age.
can't, huh?
I couldn't either at that age.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, that's what you should be teaching your children, really, or focusing on
Right.
teaching your children is how to think
But the
critically.
great thing about that, as I say that, is I was also being pushed to get better at it. I don't know how it is
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
but from what I've seen and how I'm viewing it as is they're just passing it along, and other teachers that I worked with, they see that
yeah,
teachers just pass it along, and like it's not my
yep.
problem anymore.
And not just that,
And
but there's also you can't even hang it just entirely on the school system either, because up until now that everybody's making a big stink about this, and this is a criticism that I'm also making about conservative families, is they're jumping up in arms about this, right? They're getting bent out of shape, and I think it's logical and rightfully so that they do that. However, up until now, they were very content with
and not a ship on
sending
the
their
way.
kids out to school and being parented by their teachers. It's like
Right.
they're not teaching their children at home. They're not what's it called, bracing or building up another knowledge outside of and interacting with their kids at home. they're not, in other words, not really being parents. They're not parenting their children once they get home from school and being involved and really teaching them and helping them to think critically and all that. They were very happy and sending their kids off to school and, hey, that's their problem. Take care of my kids. Or they're treating it like a daycare
and
too.
There's a large group of people that that do that, right? And there's that. It's essentially become a glorified daycare center.
I agree.
Right,
and that's why we can't think critically.
Now it's your problem.
Why we have such an issue with guns and with cars. With the thing that the comparison we're making with that. Well, that's why people, when they drive, they get a license because it's a big responsibility and they have to learn about that. But even still now, we run into, I don't know. I mean, I know I complain to you all the time about that when we're talking on the phone. After work, driving home, when we're having our conversations, we complain about some of these idiots that are driving on the road. Now, I'm not a perfect driver, and I know I screw up sometimes. But there's some people that are not paying attention, that are just like, I'm like, what are you doing on the road? Like, you're not supposed to do that. Turn your blinker on. Like, how am I supposed to know behind you that you're going to get in front of me? Ones. Like, it's just horrible like that. People can't even be logical and responsible with that. And yet,
the one that irritates me is when there's a huge gap.
Oh yeah.
I get that all the time, and I'm just like, guys,
or
come
the person that's asleep at the wheel when they're like the first person in the line and the light's green, and I'm like, hey, dude, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Dude, the light is green, and it's not just me trying to get somewhere. These people behind me also need to get other places. You know, so it's not just that you're inconveniencing me, you're inconveniencing all these people behind you. Look, pay attention to the road. When you're on the road, this little device.
I can't always complain about that. I've learned from those lessons, actually.
It happens, dude. It happens.
I've caught myself a few times at the red light, and I'm like just browsing my phone, and I'm
don't get me wrong. I mean, it does essentially happen, dude.
How do I say it? Like, you know how the YouTube has that, what do we used to call it? The YouTube wormhole, where you're just chasing video after video.
The rabbit hole that you just get, like the TikTok is like that. The TikTok and the YouTube shorts.
I think I was reading articles, and like I'll get into that because I'll just sit there just bored out of my mind waiting for, and I think that's an issue, right? Would you say that's an issue nowadays? It's like we have such a short attention span that we get bored so easily at a traffic light, which typically lasts 30 seconds, right? And we'll just, instead of waiting those 30 seconds, we're like, no, we need something to interest us or keep us busy for this time period because I cannot sit here for 30 seconds.
This spans generations too. Because my dad, who was another, definitely a separate generation from us, that had that. Oh, back in the day, we had to actually engage in conversations with people. My dad is just as bad with the phone, getting in it and digging in and not paying attention when he's. I'm like, dude, you're driving.
We've all gotten hooked.
Yes,
we've all gotten hooked. Like,
and that's another thing that also go back just to overarching.
He's fairly
thinking critically.
He's not very much educated, but when he first got that phone, that's all I would see him do, and my mom would always complain about it. And it's just funny how you'll see a grown adult, like, of course, at that time, I'm you can say I'm a grown adult, but I'm baffled too, because I'm just like, wow, like, dude, you're just as bad as me. You're just sitting on that phone and just browsing away, and he's like reading articles and just finding like health stuff to look at. Oh yeah,
and I'm obsessed with video. Anything that's video or audio.
He's over this time. Like he has reduced it. I don't see him as much going into it, but go ahead.
Oh, but that's another thing that goes back again into the whole critical thinking and being aware and being present, and that's what we have so much this disconnect, and there's so much issues with our education, with having that common sense to be able to operate a motor vehicle or to be able to own a weapon. And people are so disassociated. I think that's another reason. I'm not hanging it all on phones or anything, because there's a lot of things that are just so tied into each other and have effects.
There are.
And that's why I think we have a bigger rise, a larger rise in shootings, like in schools and stuff like that, is because of that. I mean, all these things you think that they're isolated incidents or that they're not tied into another thing and they don't have ramifications of. We as a whole, people are very myopic, and they have a very small view and tunnel view, and they don't think that, okay, well, this little device here that I'm using isn't going to have an impact in this part of my life. It's not going to have an impact. Like, yes, it does. It has an impact on a lot of things. You don't think about it. You don't see it, but until you start actually.
But the thing is that we get wrapped up into this is the reason why I think we're using this a lot, is because we get wrapped up into our world, right? Into our work, into our social life so much that our only escape from our problems is this.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's an instant gratification.
No other escape.
Exactly. And it's instant gratification because, I mean, we have instantaneous information. We have instantaneous, all these things that just come at us real quick. And we don't, I think we let it get away from us where we didn't master control of it, and it's wind up taking control over us. And it's affected every part of our life. I think that's another one of the reasons why we have that deficiency in the way we interact with the opposite sex too. And why we have, we're one of the shorts videos that we were sharing and talking about earlier was this.
we want things really fast, right? It's hey,
I didn't know what you were getting at. I'm like, are you mocking me?
No.
But that's why, like, that video I sent you about where they were talking about how oftentimes women don't go for men that are really more on their social level, because they're seeing all this lifestyle that they're seeing other women and celebrities and all these people. They see that lifestyle and they want that lifestyle, so they're trying to go after people who are going to go get them to that lifestyle. Same thing with the guys; they want to go after the women that fit in that lifestyle. That, oh, look at this hot chick that I have in my arm, whatever. When really, the person that you want to be with is this kind of woman over here. This woman over here is the kind of woman that you actually need in your life and you should go for. But you want to go for the visual thing, the lifestyle, the image. And we're all about that because that's all we're bombarded with. Every freaking video, there's always these TikTok girls or that girl and these influencer guys that have these alpha male kind of things and everything. I'm like, dude, really?
Right. Yeah. No. You hit it spot on, because from my perspective and what I've experienced, yes, I've actually met women that are just into following these celebrities and just like into their fashion, and they just want to be just like them. And I'm just like, why? Like, be you. Like, why do you have to be like them? I get it. On following trends, I get it. But then they're just like, oh, this actress did this, so I'm going to do this too. And I'm just like, guys, like, have your own identity, make your own way. Like, that's important. Let's be a little more authentic. Or I need to be a size 0, or I need to have big boobs and a big ass and all that. I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's nice to look at. Of course, guys, we're visual beings. As a man, of course it is. But there's so much more substance behind all that, and that's what I think. That's where it all gets lost. But you can't also women understand that too, and that's where a lot of men are not understanding. Like, hey, guess what? These women that are actually going after these guys, they're not only going after the looks. I know it might look that way, but actually they're actually wanting a decent guy, like has some substance, has some some purpose in his life, has some responsibilities, can take care of himself, is a little more driven. They essentially want protection, right? Yeah. And so on the flip side of things, it's a facade, though. Like some of these gentlemen that they're chasing after because of the looks and what they think they associate because of celebrities, because of the Prince Charmings that you see in romantic comedies, etc., and all this stuff. That's why they look at they've almost become as bad with the visual as much as guys are visual people. That typically guys want to go after the hot chick because we're visually driven. Girls will see that and they associate that with some sort of success and actually being
well-rounded man, a real well-rounded
Right.
individual. But then they start dating them, and we have criticisms with one of our friends in one of the groups, and I've seen this in some of the women in my group over here in my part of Texas now, that they pursue these gentlemen, and they're always complaining and talking to me and to other people about, I just broke up with this guy. All men are trash. This guy's just like this, and blah blah blah. I'm like, I start seeing their posts and kind of going back to the history a little bit. I'm like, you realize you're dating the same guy? I mean, I know it's not
Right.
the same dude, but you're dating the
Right.
same kind of guy. So
Essentially,
maybe you're
it's the same
focusing
person.
too much on a certain type of thing.
Right. Right. They're trying to maybe like check some boxes that really shouldn't be checked. Maybe there's other boxes that they're overlooking that should be checked instead. And that going back to it, I don't know how many times we're going to mention this, but it does take self-awareness.
Yeah.
And this is where it takes like, what do I really need? And
Yeah.
it took me a while because originally, just like every other man, I'm all thinking, yeah, I want a decent looking woman. But then as I delved into it, I'm like, it's not really about having a very hot, having that 10 or, whatever celebrity, look like them and whatnot. I've learned that I actually want more substance. I actually want someone that can have a conversation, that is smart, that is intelligent, that can, is driven. And
That is emotionally aware and
yeah,
have their defect. Everybody's gonna have their defects and their hangups and everything.
Right.
But somebody who's
Right.
aware of it, kind of working on it or continuously,
Yeah.
and owns up to it. Like that's another trend that's happening on both sexes is that they don't take responsibility and accountability for their actions and for who they are. It's always the other person's fault. Man,
Yeah.
all women are the same. All they want is this, and women this, and blah blah blah. Just use them and
which
groom them
that
and whatever.
that can
It's like,
be
no, dude.
said and done to a certain extent, right? That the blame is there for the other person to a certain extent,
Absolutely.
but it can't be fully given to them. You're like, no,
Yeah.
this weight is all yours. Like,
Yeah.
the problem that we
I
had, it
forgot
was
which
all
one-
your fault. It wasn't
Yeah.
shared
I
at
forgot which
all. It
one of
wasn't
the-
mine
the-
or yours.
I forgot which one of the podcasters or video people that we watch all the time, whatever, said it one way. I think, well, no, Jordan Peterson's another one that said it to the effect of, it's not all women that are bad or all men that are bad. Really, what's the common denominator here? Like, if you keep on running into the same issue and the same problem, all people don't have. It's not all people that have that problem. Maybe it's you that has the problem. Maybe you're the problem.
Right.
Maybe it's you.
Right.
Because not
And-
all
and
these
that's
people,
hard to
all these
do.
people can't be bad.
And that's the thing.
All these people
That's
can be-
hard to do. To take that mirror and put it on yourself and like look
It's
into
uncomfortable.
it and just
And that's sad because that means that you can't even be vulnerable to yourself. So if you can't be
It's scary.
vulnerable to yourself, how are you going to be
and it's
vulnerable to
true.
somebody else?
It is scary to open up what you are and who you are and being real with yourself. It is very scary.
Absolutely.
And trying to resolve whatever you're going through. That's very scary.
It's not comfortable.
It's no joke. It's true. That shit is like you, especially when you go down that rabbit hole. You're facing some demons that you didn't even know you had, and so it's totally understandable on not facing it. But where you have to face it is if you're wanting to change the habits that you're continuing or the mistakes that you're continuously making, right? What they're expressing is a mistake, right? And so for saying that, if you want to break that pattern, then yes, you're going to have to dig inside and you're just going to have to be really honest with yourself. And it's important to have a good support group while you're going down that journey, because if you don't, it gets difficult by yourself, because you definitely need, essentially, I wouldn't say an out, but you need
Like
support.
I had this conversation one night when I was over at my cousin's for one of the taco fight nights, and I think I don't know if you were there or you might have left, but one of their friends, they made a friend with this girl at the bar, and then I asked her, we were talking about like this whole relationship thing, whatever, and I mentioned that I actually value, or it does matter to me what people think about me to a certain extent. Like,
and that's important.
Let me lay it out. Let me lay it out.
We do. We have to value it to a certain extent.
Yeah, because I mean, I take everybody's criticism or their view or their appreciation of who I am and how I show up with a grain of salt. Obviously, like, I'm not just going to believe them exactly with it, because there's some people that have an agenda, or there's just people that are just rotten, or whatever you might say, whatever. But I'm like, well, I want to hear what they think about me, or what their impression is of me. Not because of I have a fragile ego or anything like that. I'm like, look, how am I showing up? And we've talked about that a lot. The whole showing up thing is like, am I showing up the way that I want to? Am I reaching my goal? Like, I need a critique every so often to see, okay, how am I actually coming up? How am I being approaching people? How am I coming across?
Right.
Like, am I successfully coming across the way I'm trying to build myself and the way I'm trying to polish myself?
Right.
And then, so, like, people can be critical and can say critical things and everything. I'll hear it, I'll listen to it, I'll internalize it. Now, if I start hearing the same thing or certain things that are similar from other people, they might say these other things, and nobody's mentioned this other stuff, so I might put that to the side. But if they pointed out A, B, and C, I'm like, okay, so I need to work on A, B, and C. These are things that are deficient in me. I'm like, okay, so I need to build up on that. I need to analyze why am I doing that, and all that, and then I'll work on that. But
and you're able to achieve that because you are essentially surrounding yourself with people that are honest with you. They're able to be honest with you, right? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a mass population that are, at least the ones that are having trouble and going through this and are essentially single, or even going through a divorce, or even in a broken marriage, whatever it may be. They are not surrounding themselves with people that can be honest, or even turn to people, a person that can be honest with them, just be straight up real with them. Like, if you're messing up and if it is your responsibility, like your fault, they're going to come out and tell you, like, dude, that's your fault, dude. And then you have to have that difficult conversation. But I think that's where a lot of fault lies, or not really fault, but a lot of what people are missing on is surrounding yourself with the right people. And that is very important. I don't think people really value that part of living.
And it's difficult to weed that out, though, sometimes.
Healthy life. Surround yourself with the right people. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to weed out the right people.
It is.
Because there are people that are dishonest, and sometimes they're doing it consciously, and other people are doing it unconsciously. But it's not uncommon. It's a very common thing for people to walk around and wear a certain mask. Even among certain groups, some people will act a certain way in one group and another way in another. But there are people wearing masks. What?
I said outside of COVID, right?
Oh, outside of COVID. Yeah.
Wearing masks.
Don't get me started on all
that. Pretty lame, huh? That was pretty lame of a joke. Maybe I should do clapping now.
Calvin wants to join in. He has his 2 cents. Hey, baby.
Yeah, so it is difficult to essentially make a decision on who you want to allow in your life, in that group, in that the circle of trust, for the lack of better words.
Circle of trust.
And so it is a difficult path to take, and cutting out people is difficult. It's not an easy thing, but it has to be happen. It has to have words right now. It has to happen. It's difficult to go down that road, but for your betterment, you have to do that, right? And so that's what I have for the people that are trying, is those two things. And that's something I express to many of the people, is like, surround yourself with the right people, and if you're having trouble doing that, keep trying. You know, it's a try and error thing when it comes to that. And then the other part is, like, be self-aware, like, have that audit on yourself, and go back and be like, oh, okay, where did I go wrong here? What did I do here? And be honest, and inquire with your friend too, whoever it may be. But it is important. Awareness is important.
Awareness is important. And then also not just being awareness, because we know we have a common friend also that seems to come aware of what they're doing and their faults, and like, I need to work on. I know I do this, and I know, and this, that, and the other.
That's
Whatever.
not awareness.
That is
So
awareness.
let's define awareness, because I think a lot of people think they're aware, but they're not really aware. Okay? So awareness isn't just realizing who you are and how you're showing up. It's also realizing the other part that a lot of people are missing when it comes to self-awareness is realizing that who you are and how you're showing up and how it's impacting your surrounding, right? That part is where a lot of people get lost. And then if it's specifically, if it's the impactful is bad, right? If I'm saying something bad to you, right? For example, if I'm saying something bad to you and you come back to me like, dude, you shouldn't have said that. And I'm going to reply, I see nothing wrong in what I said, right? That is lacking awareness.
Is it awareness?
You're lacking self-awareness there. In the true definition of self-awareness, that's what it is. It's an intro and extro.
Yeah. Well, the thing is
of awareness.
Like this person that I'm referring to is aware and aware of the impact and has said as much and as such and all that. The thing is, there's a deficiency with an action acting upon that. They can recognize it. They recognize the issue. They recognize the impact or how it can affect other people, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lack of forward motion or move. So it's really for naught. It's really for there's nothing. It's kind of pointless. I hate to sound it, so it just sounds kind of cruel or whatever to say that. I don't know what it sounds a certain way, but it's like it sounds harsh. I guess maybe is what it is.
Right.
Is that they're aware, but if you're aware of this, if you recognize it, if you can acknowledge it, but you don't do anything about it, you even say that, yeah, I know it's something I need to work on, or I'm trying to work on it, but you're really not doing anything about it. That's your problem
now.
No, it's a them problem, right?
Yeah,
but the thing
is
that they're
definitely
not doing
a problem for them. Like that's an issue.
Absolutely. That's where I think a lot of people get stuck
now
also.
Blame anyone. If you're not going to change that part, you're not going to blame anyone. Especially if the behavior becomes reckless to the external, like the group of people, right? For example, and you're not going to really change or correct that, and yet you're going to put the blame on them. That means you really don't care. You're essentially that's an asshole move. That's a
it is an asshole move.
An asshole-ish move, and you that's
but
not
if you
really
know that
truly
you're trying
being
to work on it, you want to
all.
work on it. There's a desire to work on it, but you don't do anything about it. That's willfully being ignorant, or you're just, I don't know. And the thing is, it could tie into a lot of other things though. So sometimes it's not like something that's like you're not trying to. It's not harmful to other people. There's maybe some sort of issue or deficiency within them that's keeping them from resolving it and from fixing the issue within themselves, or to correct it, or to build, or to grow upon that, to get past that behavior. And they're just stuck there. And some people do it willfully because either they're afraid of the unknown, or there's countless reasons why people will do that. They're aware of it, they know it, and they don't do anything about it. Some people will blame it on, that's the way I was raised, that's all I saw, my dad was like this, that's why I'm like that. I'm like, well, if you know, if your dad was like that to you, and you didn't like it growing up, and now you have your own kids, and you're engaging in that same behavior, knowing that you didn't like it, and you're only doing it because that's what you saw, why don't you try something different? You're gonna make your own mistakes, dude. You're always gonna make your own mistakes. You're gonna make new mistakes.
Yeah, along that journey, you are gonna make your own mistakes, and you can't revert back on what you know and what you've seen. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's where it becomes very difficult, especially when you're also trying to balance the other part of raising the kid at the same time, because you are naturally going to revert to those same actions that you've seen. But it takes great discipline and great awareness in order to correct all that type of behavior.
And I can understand because there's comfort in the familiarity, in the familiar.
Yes,
I think this
definitely.
person kind of said it or is aware of it and said it and owned up to it. That they became very comfortable with living that dysfunction. That like, oh
Yeah,
well, I was so used to living in this dysfunction where this is how my partner related to me, and or my
right.
partners have
Yeah,
related to me, and I've been used to that dysfunction. So now when I find somebody, or when I'm with somebody, around somebody, or people that don't have that dysfunction, that are healthy, that communicate, that engage, um, it feels wrong, or it feels boring, or it feels weird, and I'm not used to it. So I always go back or revert to something that was comfortable for me, or that I
right,
was aware of, that I know, and it's not good, it's not healthy, and it's not right.
right. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people do stuff. Some people do it
It's
willfully.
it's a very in-depth conversation. We can
Mm-hmm.
probably just on this topic alone just go down it and just hit just different little branches and different little
How many
avenues
topics have we hopped on?
and streams, you know? Like we can hit so and we can probably talk about this for ages and
Oh,
it's such
absolutely.
a great topic. But saying that, I think we should wrap this up and
Wrap it up. But kind
save the
of before we wrap
conversations.
up, I kind of want to tie back to that thing, because like some people, that's why I always say this to people when I have these kind of conversations sometimes, is that some of these things seem like divergent topics, but that's why everything that you do, everything that one thing always affects another thing. So you might be, we started talking about gun control, but everything ties into education, into how we relate to people, self
Yeah.
awareness, critical thinking,
It,
all these things that branch out into these other subjects, because they're all interrelated into some way.
So when you boil it down to it, it's really about you.
Yeah,
And that's the way I'm taking it as, right?
it's
Now,
about
this
you and how you affect other people. It's about
yes.
you.
Yes. Um so saying that, we just wrapped up the our first episode, huh?
Yeah, it's not bad for.
How do you feel?
I feel good about it. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we'll polish this off and we'll refine it, and it'll get better.
Yeah, I had really zero expectations going into this, but one thing I knew what's going to happen is we're going to grab a topic and I knew the conversation was just going to go out naturally.
Yeah.
So for the audience, this was very unscripted. We did not plan going down this road at all. Um, and this
We
is what
literally
we're
just
going to
said, "Hey,
do.
let's get on this."
Yeah, this is what we're going to do from time to time. We're not going to have any script. We're not going to have anything to say. And hopefully we didn't say anything out of line and offend anyone. And if we did, we dearly, dearly apologize. We definitely are pretty ignorant people, right? I won't say we're the
It's not
brightest minds of the
intentional.
world and we know it
Yeah.
all. We definitely
It's
want to
not
be
intentional.
educated
It's
at the
not with
same time.
malice. Yeah.
Please,
There's no
yeah, we're not
malice.
talking with malice at all. Please, if you feel like we are ignorant in such topic, we would definitely want to know in, in any area and educate us. Please do. Feel free. Till then, see you all next time, and y'all take
See ya.
care. Any last words, Gabe?
That's it.
That's it. I like that
That's
you
it.
have just like us. I'm good. I just want to
Bye.
go to sleep now. See y'all guys later. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.